You think you have an anger problem? You don't. You have a reaction problem. The insult wasn't the issue. The trigger wasn't the threat. It's what you chose to do next. That's where the storm began. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, yet wrote in silence each morning to master his own mind. Not the wars. Not the enemies. Himself. Because the real battlefield isn't out there. It's in your chest. Behind your ribs. Where the first fire starts. This isn't motivation. It's mental warfare. And in the next 10 lessons, you'll learn how to win it without lifting your voice. 1. Emotions are a choice, not a reflex. When anger rises, you believe you're forced to explode. But the truth is, you chose to. Think back to the last time you lost your temper. Maybe someone cut you off mid-sentence. Or you received an email laced with passive aggression. In that instant, you felt the fire ignite in your chest. Your eyes narrowed. Your face tightened. Your body entered fight mode. And you snapped back. Or slammed the door. Reflex? Maybe. But not inevitable. Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by events, but by their judgment about those events." This is one of Stoicism's greatest revelations. No one makes you angry. They simply do something. Whether you get angry, that's your choice. Negative emotions don't leap onto you like wild animals. They come in only when you open the door. When someone insults you, you have two choices. Believe their words are true and react to defend your ego. Observe the moment and refuse to be manipulated. A Stoic isn't emotionless. He's someone who trains to understand. I can't control others, but I can control how I respond. The problem with most grown men today? They believe emotions are natural and therefore uncontrollable. But if you always act naturally, you're no different from a child, just one with facial hair and more responsibilities. A truly mature man doesn't let his feelings steer him. He understands that emotion is like a fierce dog, trainable with patience and repetition. You might feel offended, but you don't have to act like a wounded animal. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled an entire empire, wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up. No one can compel you to feel anything. That's the golden key. What hurts you is not the other person's behavior, it's your belief that they have power over your state of mind. If you're triggered by words, glances, emails, texts, you're giving away the steering wheel of your life. The Stoic man never does that. He trains daily to maintain emotional sovereignty. Not to become a robot, but to hold on to peace in a chaotic world. Stoic anchor line. Emotions don't come from the outside, they rise from within you. Real-world action step. Try this today. When you start to feel angry, pause for 5 seconds. Write this sentence: am I choosing this feeling or letting someone else choose for me? If your answer is I'm choosing, go ahead. If your answer is they're making me angry, you know it's time to take your power back. Write it down, don't just think. Because writing equals claiming control. Like building muscle, mastering emotions requires training. And it starts the moment you realize you have the right to choose your response. 2. Reacting instantly is losing automatically. You read this because somewhere deep inside, you're tired of overreacting. Of saying things you regret. Of being baited like a rookie. Let's connect the dots from CTA 1. You've now seen that emotions are not forced upon you, they're chosen. And if anger is a choice, then how quickly you respond determines who's actually in control. Every moment of anger starts the same way, a trigger, then a reaction. But what happens between the trigger and your response, that's where power lives. The modern Stoic inserts one tool here, the pause. A 5-second breath. A brief silence. A step back, literally or mentally. It's in that pause where clarity shows up. Where you move from instinct to intention. Where you stop acting like a wild animal and start responding like a sovereign man. Epictetus taught this principle in his core teaching. We have two handles to choose from when facing any situation, one that leads to calm and one that leads to chaos. The pause lets you choose the right handle. Why do we react instantly? Because ego hates to feel disrespected. Because silence feels like weakness. Because the world today glorifies quick wit, sharp comebacks, and instant justice. But Stoicism flips the script. It's not strong to strike first, it's weak to be predictable. The truly powerful man? He is calm, unreadable, and measured. He watches while others burn themselves out. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Reacting instantly makes you a mirror, not a man. It turns you into a reflection of someone else's chaos. You shout because they shouted. You slam because they slammed. You become them. And you lose yourself. The strategic value of the pause. It gives you time to gather facts, not just feelings. It exposes emotional traps others set for you. It flips the dynamic, now they wonder what you're thinking. It protects your reputation, your relationships, your rhythm. And above all, it reminds you you are not a slave to emotion. Stoic anchor line. Every second you wait before responding, you reclaim a piece of your mind. Real-world action step. Start the 5-second rule challenge today. Every time someone says something irritating, frustrating, or insulting, do not respond immediately. Instead, take 5 slow breaths. Or silently count to 5. Notice what shifts in that moment, not just in your emotions, but in your clarity. Write down what happened after the pause. Keep a log. Over time, you'll realize you've stopped losing control because you stopped giving it away. 3. Insults only work if you let them in. Let's take it further. You've learned to pause. You've slowed your reactions. But what happens when someone tries to get under your skin? What if the attack is direct, even personal? This is where most men lose their edge. They might stay calm for a moment. But then a sharp comment slips through. A jab about your competence, your past, your worth. Suddenly, the pause is gone. And you're back in the fight. But here's the Stoic truth. An insult has no power unless you open the door and let it in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone speaks ill of you, ask yourself, is it true? If yes, correct it. If not, ignore it. This single line can change your entire relationship with conflict. Because the man who's offended by everything is ruled by everything. Think about this. Someone calls you weak. If you're truly strong, you won't even blink. Why? Because the insult doesn't match your reality. But if the comment hits you, you might ask why. Maybe it's not about them. Maybe it's about a hidden insecurity in you. That's where Stoicism steps in. It doesn't just protect your peace, it confronts your ego. Seneca once said, a great mind is above insults and takes no offense from them. The Stoic understands that being unoffended isn't apathy, it's strategy. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you refuse to hand over your dignity to someone else's bad day. Because let's face it, most insults come from people who are hurting, frustrated, or simply projecting. Their comment? It says more about them than it ever will about you. Let's break it down. When you get offended, you're giving your attacker free rent in your mind. When you stay neutral, they lose control. And when you smile in the face of provocation, you win, silently. That's Stoic power. Stoic anchor line. What bounces off you cannot bruise you. Real-world action step. Do this exercise for 3 days. Every time you feel insulted, write the insult down. Ask, is this objectively true? If yes, say thank you, improve it. If no, laugh, release it, and move on. Score yourself at the end of the day. How many times did you stay composed? You're not ignoring the insult. You're mastering your response to it. This is what separates the emotional boy from the grounded man. 4. Anger is a punishment you give yourself for someone else's mistake. You've learned how to pause. You've learned how to neutralize insults. Now, let's address the most self-destructive pattern of all, punishing yourself for what others do. Imagine this: someone cuts you off in traffic. Or a coworker forgets something important. Or a stranger is rude for no reason. You stew in silence. Replay the moment again and again. Hours later, they've moved on, but you're still carrying it. This is the emotional tax of anger. And you're the one paying it. The Stoic perspective is simple. Why should I let someone else's mistake cost me my peace? Let's look at it from a strategic lens. Your day has limited energy. Anger drains it. And it rarely changes anything outside of you. Seneca wrote, "Anger, an acid that does more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured." Think about that. Every time you hold on to anger, you're corroding yourself. The Stoic man knows this. He doesn't suppress anger, he outsmarts it. He sees it as emotional debt. And he refuses to pay interest on someone else's bad behavior. Let's be real. People will disappoint you. They will forget, fail, provoke, betray. But none of that is personal, unless you make it personal. Anger tricks you into believing you're fighting back. But most of the time, you're just fighting yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." This is one of the most liberating Stoic lines ever written. Because it reminds you, you get to decide what something means. Their error? Not your crisis. Their rudeness? Not your burden. Their chaos? Not your war. Stoic anchor line. When you carry anger, you carry their mistake too, but on your back. Real-world action step. Try this mental shift the next time someone wrongs you. Close your eyes. Picture the mistake as a small stone. Ask yourself, do I really want to carry this all day? Imagine yourself dropping the stone, literally. Then take one breath and let it go. Bonus, journal each night with this question. What anger did I carry today that wasn't mine to hold? You'll start to see patterns. You'll start dropping stones earlier. And eventually, you'll stop picking them up altogether. 5. See everything like an outsider, and you'll stay calm inside. By now, you've begun reclaiming your reactions. You're not responding instantly. You're not swallowing every insult. You're not punishing yourself with anger. But there's one skill that ties all of this together, the Stoic ability to detach emotionally and observe life like an outsider. This isn't withdrawal. This is elevation. Here's the Stoic mindset. I am in the scene, but I am not the scene. It means stepping outside of yourself, like a drone pulling back from a close-up. You still play your role in the world, but your mind watches from a higher vantage point. This is where true calm is born. Marcus Aurelius used this practice constantly. As emperor, he faced betrayal, death, war, and politics. Yet he wrote in his journal, "You are a soul carrying a corpse, step back and look at the whole picture." He didn't run from problems. He observed them. He reminded himself, I'm not my anger. I'm not my job. I'm not my title. I'm something deeper. What does this look like in practice? Let's say someone criticizes your work in front of others. Instead of letting your ego jump in, pause and ask, if I were watching this happen to a friend, how would I view it? If this moment were a scene in a film, would I overreact or see the bigger arc? This shift instantly creates space. And in that space, power, presence, peace. Epictetus taught, we are actors in a play. Play your role well, but never forget you are not the role itself. That's how you stop identifying with every emotion. That's how you avoid being consumed by the drama around you. You stop taking everything personally and start playing your part with grace. Stoic anchor line. The man who steps outside himself sees clearer than the one lost inside his rage. Real-world action step. Begin your daily observer practice. Each night, write a short paragraph titled, "What did I witness today?" Describe one situation as if you were an outsider watching someone else. Notice, was your reaction calm or emotional? Strategic or impulsive? This simple reflection builds emotional objectivity, a core Stoic muscle. And over time, you'll see patterns, grow distance, and develop clarity that feels like a secret weapon. Because when others drown in the moment, you float above it, watching, understanding, mastering. 6. Negative emotions are signals, not your identity. Let's shift the narrative once more. You've paused before reacting. You've detached from insults. You've stopped punishing yourself with anger. And you've begun seeing situations from the outside. Now, it's time to understand something even deeper. Your negative emotions are not your enemy. They're messengers. Most men are taught to do one of two things with anger: sadness, jealousy, or frustration. Suppress it. Push it down, pretend it's not there, man up. Explode. Let it rip, yell, break things, punish others or themselves. Neither path leads to peace. But the Stoic sees a third way. Observe the emotion. Decode the message. Act with wisdom. Epictetus said, "What is not in your control?" The emotion. What is in your control? Your response to it. He didn't tell you to feel nothing. He told you to do something useful with what you feel. Think about this. You feel anger. Why? Because a boundary was crossed? Because you felt unseen, unvalued, or disrespected? Good. That's intel. That's a message from your inner world. But here's the key: you don't have to become that emotion. You are not your anger. You are not your anxiety. You are not your sadness. You are the man noticing those emotions. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "If it's endurable, endure it. If it's not, stop complaining. Either fix it or drop it." That's the Stoic formula. Acknowledge the emotion. Ask what it's trying to show you. Decide, act or let it go. No spirals. No shame. No false toughness. Just clean, honest reflection and forward movement. Stoic anchor line. You are not your emotion, you are the one deciding what to do with it. Real-world action step. Start your 7-day signal log. Every time a strong emotion hits, pause. Write down, what am I feeling? What's the trigger? What does this really say about me? Then answer, what action honors this awareness? By day 7, you'll start seeing through the noise. Your emotions won't feel like enemies, they'll feel like maps. If this message speaks to something quiet inside you, stay with it. There are more men like you, walking the same road, reclaiming their minds one moment at a time. Open mailbox with raised flag. If you're not already subscribed, consider joining. Not for motivation, but for mastery. Quiet strength. Clear thought. Unshakable presence. One email at a time. 7. Silence is the weapon of the calm. Let's drop deeper into strength. You've begun decoding your emotions. You no longer treat them like enemies. You write. You pause. You reflect. Now, it's time to embrace one of the most misunderstood Stoic powers. Silence. Not the silence of weakness. Not avoidance. But strategic stillness. The silence of a man who knows what he feels, but doesn't need to say everything. Epictetus taught, let silence be your goal for the most part, say only what is necessary and in few words. This is not about shrinking. It's about sharpening. Because in a world of noise, silence is a signal. It signals strength, composure, mastery. Why is silence powerful? It breaks patterns. People expect reactions, not reflection. It creates mystery. The less you explain, the more people lean in. It builds inner authority. You're not swayed by urgency or chaos. It turns the moment back on them, especially in conflict. Marcus Aurelius modeled this as emperor. He didn't argue with every accusation. He didn't defend every decision. He chose action over explanation. And when others panicked, his calm became leadership. Think about your own life. The argument that spiraled because you had to have the last word. The meeting where silence would have said more than that 3-minute rant. The relationship where speaking less could have preserved respect. We often talk ourselves into trouble. We rarely regret the things we chose not to say. Stoic anchor line. He who holds his tongue holds the moment. Real-world action step. Try a 3-day tactical silence challenge. When someone challenges you, don't explain yourself immediately. When provoked, breathe, wait, look before speaking. In conversations, speak 20% less than you normally do. Notice how people react. Notice what you gain. Notice how much more control you feel by simply not rushing to fill the space. This isn't withdrawal, it's presence with purpose. 8. The world isn't against you, it's just indifferent. Let's strip away the story. You've used silence as strength. You've built space between reaction and response. But still, there are days where everything feels personal. The driver that cuts you off. The email that ignores you. The promotion you didn't get. The silence that stings more than any insult. It builds. Quietly. Until you start to think, why does the world keep doing this to me? But here's the Stoic answer, it's not doing anything to you. It's just being what it is. Epictetus reminds us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. In other words, the universe doesn't owe you kindness. People don't owe you fairness. Life doesn't target you. It just is. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as the victim of a targeted world, you begin to free yourself. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly. When you wake up, remember, you'll meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and selfish people. It's part of the job. He didn't say that with bitterness. He said it with clarity. With acceptance. Because once you accept that the world is not out to hurt you, you stop wasting energy defending yourself from shadows. What really changes? You stop internalizing cold behavior as rejection. You stop thinking the silence means disrespect. You stop believing bad luck means you're cursed. Instead, you become neutral. Clear. Liberated. When a stranger ignores you, you let it go. When someone forgets your name, you smile inwardly. When the world is indifferent, you remain intact. The Stoic man sees what is, and doesn't add what isn't. He doesn't dramatize reality. He engages with it as it is. This makes him hard to offend, impossible to rattle, and extremely effective. Stoic anchor line. Most of what offends you wasn't meant for you in the first place. Real-world action step. Start your detachment lens this week. Anytime something feels personal, pause. Ask, is this about me? Or is this just the world doing what it does? Choose to respond only to what's real, not what's imagined. Keep a 3-column page, what happened, what I felt, what was actually true. You'll begin to notice. Most things aren't worth the heat you give them. The world isn't cold, it's just neutral. And that neutrality is freedom, if you let it be. 9. Being provoked doesn't mean you owe a reaction. You're almost at the summit. You've learned to pause. To hold your silence. To stop personalizing the world's indifference. But now comes the real test, when someone wants you to react. The jab. The side comment. The passive aggression. The tone that says, let's go. This is no accident. You're being baited. And most men fall for it. But a Stoic? He smiles. He sees the hook. And he does not bite. Epictetus warned. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize your mind is complicit. Let that sink in. You're not a victim of provocation. You're a partner in it. The moment you snap, they win. Because now you're no longer you, you've become a puppet of their emotion. And they're pulling the strings. Real power is non-reactivity. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're dangerous, but controlled. It means you could respond, but you choose not to. And that choice terrifies the manipulator. They need your fire to justify their chaos. But you're giving them nothing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. Because silence leaves no debris. No trail. No ammo for them to use later. Just clarity. Clean, calm, clarity." Why is this hard? Because the ego wants to defend itself. To prove its strength. To show we're not the weak ones. But the Stoic knows, walking away from a fight you didn't start isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Imagine this scenario. Someone insults you publicly. You breathe. Smile slightly. Say nothing. Move on. What do they have now? Nothing. They threw fire, and you didn't catch it. That's dominance through discipline. Stoic anchor line. They lost control. You didn't. That's the win. Real-world action step. Practice the no debate rule this week. When provoked, pause and say nothing for 10 seconds. Ask yourself, is there any upside to engaging? If not, walk away. End the exchange. Change the topic. Exit the room. Journal, what would I have said? Did staying silent protect something important? You'll see. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. 10. No one controls you if you control yourself. This is the final piece. The culmination of everything you've practiced. You've paused. You've observed. You've dropped your anger. You've silenced the noise. You've walked away from traps. Now you arrive at the core of Stoicism, the ultimate freedom. Self-control is the only control that matters. You can't control traffic. You can't control your boss. You can't control how others treat you, speak to you, or perceive you. But if you can control your mind, your breath, your voice, your actions, then nothing owns you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This is not motivational fluff. It's the battlefield truth of every Stoic warrior. If they can't provoke you, they can't control you. If they can't offend you, they can't define you. If they can't shake you, they can't stop you. So ask yourself, who's steering my emotions, me or the world? When I lose my temper, who gains from that? When I react out of impulse, who's really in charge? Because the man who is governed by emotion is easily conquered. But the man who governs himself? He's untouchable. Epictetus challenged his students. If you want to be free, begin by mastering yourself. This is the root of Stoicism. Not coldness. Not detachment. But a fierce, grounded presence built from the inside out. You become a rock in the storm. Unshaken. Unbought. Unmoved. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Stoic anchor line. The strongest man is the one no one can pull out of character. Real-world action step. Start a 3-minute morning ritual. Before the day begins, ask, what will I not let control me today? Write down one possible trigger and one conscious response. Carry it with you. Review it at night. Did I remain who I want to be? You're not building perfection. You're building sovereignty. Brick by brick. Thought by thought. Choice by choice. You've made it through the 10 lessons. You've taken in more than advice. You've taken in philosophy in motion. Now the real work begins. Apply. Return. Reflect. Repeat. You've just walked through 10 Stoic truths that could change your life, not by changing the world, but by changing how you meet it. No guru. No hacks. Just ancient clarity, made modern. Pause before reacting. Let silence lead. Drop what doesn't serve you. And remember, every emotion is an invitation, not a command. You don't need a new life. You need a new lens. From now on, when anger knocks, you won't open the door. When ego screams, you'll let it burn out in silence. Because you've seen what few men ever see. Your greatest power is not how loud you react, but how still you remain. Old Key, if this series gave you something real, something steady, drop one word in the comments. Unshakable. And if you want more clarity, more strength, and more stillness in a noisy world, bell subscribe. Not to follow me, but to return to you.